What is the creepiest unsolved crime you have ever heard of? The DC Madam. Basically in the mid-2000s this lady's $300 per hour, $500,000 brothel in the US Capitol was raided and the madam was ordered to turn over her clientele list. She told reporters that her list that spanned years was thousands of clients including many powerful national politicians. Because of this she feared for her life and insisted if she was found dead it would be a murder made to look suicide. In an interview on Alex Jones's show in July 2007, Palfrey explicitly stated, "I'm not planning to commit suicide," and made clear her motivation to present her case at trial, saying, "I plan on exposing the government in ways that I do not think they want me to expose them." So naturally, before she could be made to testify, on May 1, 2008, Palfrey was found hanging in a storage shed outside her mother's mobile home in Tarpon Springs, Florida. Police found handwritten suicide notes in the bedroom where she was staying, dated a week before her death. The autopsy and the final police investigation concluded her death was a suicide. May or may not be a crime, but a plane carrying 239 people disappeared out of thin air, and we've all already forgot about it. The lady who was found in the water supply tank on the roof of a hotel in Los Angeles, people were bathing in and drinking that water for weeks. They found her when people complained of foul-tasting water and black water coming out of the shower. The coroner ruled it an accidental death by drowning, but it's a really weird story. The tanks were on the roof, gated, locked, had an alarm system, and they found her in the tank with the lid secured. They had to cut the tank open to remove the body. Disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley. Basically, a girl goes missing during a cruise with her family in 1998. A year later, a guy reported being approached by her at a brothel. She told him her name is Amy Bradley and asked him to help her. Before he could do anything, she was escorted upstairs. That guy ended up reporting this to the police. Several months later, by the time he reported it, the brothel had been burned down. Had a friend go missing 5 days before the 4th of July go missing. He was kind and soft-spoken, never did drugs. But the last night anyone saw him he told our group of friends while we were out at a club, quite suddenly, that our lives were in inexplicable danger and we had to get out of there right now or everyone is going to die. We got him outside and calmed him down. Then he just took off running. He was a big dude and we couldn't catch up to him. That was the last time anyone saw him alive. 5 days later, on July 4th, he turned up face down in Montrose Harbor. A video from a nearby convenience store turned up showing him the next day after he went missing coming in and asking if anyone turned in a lost cell phone. Autopsy was inconclusive and the comprehensive toxicology report was negative. It's been a year and we're still left with questions behind his death. This was around the same time a handful of college and postgrad students showed up face down in other harbors around Chicago. I live in San Antonio, Texas. There's a story about a maid walking into a room and seeing this man wrapping up sheets soaked with blood. She started screaming. He took off. The cops showed up and found blood all over the bed and in the tub. They followed the trail of blood outside but it was raining so they lost it. They found out he was at another hotel. He killed himself right before they opened the door. Well, they never found out who he killed. He had been seen bringing woman over to his room. The city had a lot of construction going on in the 60s so they think he threw the bag in some cement. I like the disappearance of the DA that was investigating Penn State almost 10 years before the scandal came out. His laptop was found in a lake, assumed dumped there by whoever disappeared him, but then after Sandusky was arrested and charged somebody got around to looking at Gricker's home computer history. Among the Google searches were things like water damage to a hard drive and how to completely erase hard drive. Also, I hope I'm remembering this right, he had already declined to press charges against Sandusky in '98, but kept telling people he had something big he was working on. Spooky all around. Gareth Williams, an MI6 agent who was found dead inside a locked sports bag in a flat. Police ruled the death as an accident despite coroner's verdict of an unlawful killing. Some James Bond type shit. There was an episode of America's Most Wanted that focused on unsolved kidnappings. One was about a girl who was kidnapped and was found dead. And every year, supposedly on the day she was murdered or her birthday, the kidnapper calls the mom. He doesn't say anything. She talks. Then he laughs and plays her daughter's favorite song With You All the Way by New Edition and hangs up. Update: Yeah, I agree with you all how sadistic this sounded. It may not have been America's Most Wanted, it may have been some NBC News kidnapping special, and I saw this back in 1997. It's been almost 17 years and I haven't found anything online about it. Wish I could help more. I'll continue searching. The kidnapping itself was in the early 80s. The phone calls started around 85 or 86. I don't think phone tracking was in the cards for this, and since there isn't any evidence linking the caller to the murder, it probably wouldn't be allowed. Just guessing. The mother would curse the man and wish him dead. He would just laugh and play the song. Today, whenever I hear that song, it just creeps me out. Didn't know about the Albert Fish letter. They are truly disturbing. The question asked was, what is the creepiest unsolved crime you have heard? And this was mine. The McStay family disappearance/murder. A family of 4 with 2 boys ages 4 and 5. One day they just disappeared from their home, left eggs out on the counter, bowls of popcorn for the kids left on the couch, their dogs left outside, the doors all locked with no sign of forced entry. Their car was found later in a mall parking lot full of newly purchased toys, the kids' car seats strapped in and the driver and passenger seats left in a position appropriate for the parents' sizes. No one had any clue where they went or why. 3 years later their skeletal remains are found in 2 shallow graves 170 miles from where the car was found. The Beaumont children still does it for me. 3 children disappear from a crowded beach, and haven't been found in the 44 years since. An interesting side note, it happened not 15 minutes walk from where the mom shoot body, another creepy unsolved crime someone else has already linked, was found. Michael Hastings. Surprised no one has mentioned this. Journalist emails workers saying Hess onto huge lead about NSA stuff. He believes someone, possibly the government, is trying to booby-trap his car. He later dies in a single car accident involving a high rate of speed. One time, I got home from work, and there were pistachio shells all over my bed, and an empty bag of pistachios on the ground. They weren't mine, didn't own any pistachios, and my door had been locked the whole time. Still don't know who did it. Pretty creepy. I dated a guy a while back whose father was a retired cop, who had worked the Waterdown area near Burlington, Ontario. From what I remember, there were several break-ins over the course of a few months, that all occurred in the middle of the night while the residents were home. Nothing was ever stolen, no one was ever harmed, and there were no signs of forced entry. The intruder would just stand beside the bed, sprinkle some baby powder over his feet to leave an outline, just to let them know he had been 3 feet away watching them as they slept. They never caught the guy. Not too creepy, but in 1974, workers from the Dowling Construction Company of Indianapolis went home for the night. They left a crane sitting with the 2.5-ton steel wrecking ball hanging 200 feet off the ground. The next morning they came back to work and the wrecking ball was gone. Everybody, police included, were baffled and the ball was never found. The Somerton man. A body was found on Somerton Beach, dead and propped up against a seawall. There was no obvious cause of death. The man had no identification. No one claimed the body, and he matched no missing persons description. In the 40s, this wasn't completely unheard of, so it wasn't big news, but then the case got weird. In tracing his path based on the train/bus tickets they found in his pockets, they discovered his suitcase, which also had no identification. In fact, labels were cut out of the clothes. It wasn't that someone lifted his wallet when they found his body, he'd purposely hidden his identity ahead of time. A second examination of the body revealed a tightly rolled up piece of paper with the words "to mom shoot" on it, loosely translated to "it is ended," hidden in a watch pocket of his pants. Someone came forward with a copy of a popular poetry book, the Rubaiyat, that they had found in the back seat of their car near where the body was found, and the last page, which should have contained the words "to mom shoot," was torn out. Except when police tried to trace this version of the book, it was one that had never been printed anywhere. Although the book was popular, the typeset, size, and shape of this copy was completely unique in the world. The back of the book had a mysterious code written in it, and 2 phone numbers. Actually, it had been written on the torn-out back page, but the indents were still visible on the back cover. One number was a bank, the other was a nurse who lived blocks away from the beach. The nurse insisted she didn't know the man, but when shown the body, detectives agree she clearly appeared to recognize him. The nurse had been an army nurse during the war, and had been known to give copies of the poetry book away to another man, an Army intelligence officer. The nurse's identity was kept secret for many years, but within the past year her children have come forward, and said she confided to them that she did know the man but never gave any details on how, and that she was a spy during the war. The code written in the book was never cracked, even though virtually every code breaker in the world, amateur and professional, for the past 60+ years, has given it a go. Oh, and that poetry book, the Rubaiyat? Another copy of it, also completely unique in the world. Its title page said it was a 7th edition, but the publishing house had only printed 5 editions of it, was also linked to another mysterious death of a high-ranking government official. He was found dead in a park with the book open on his chest. A woman who testified at the inquest of his death was found dead in her bathtub, wrists slit open. And guess who frequented the hotel bar across the street from the park he was found in, and had given a copy of the book to another man there 2 months after he died? The nurse. The article linked gives a much more thorough explanation, with a few weird theories. Highly recommend checking it out. Such a creepy case. Lori Erica Kennedy. Seriously, Google her, creepy as shit. Basically, a woman believed to be from the Pacific Northwest stole a birth certificate and started a new life. But there is absolutely zero account or evidence of her before 1988. She actually married and had a baby before killing herself post-divorce in 2010, which was when her ex-husband found the birth certificate and name change docs buried in her closet. The only theory I've seen that's remotely plausible was that she's an escapee from Enfield's community. It could explain that she never did have her own birth certificate, and more than one person's pointed out a similarity between her and Enfield's Prophet's family that got into some serious trouble in the 80s. The Ketty murders. This was the loose basis for the movie The Strangers. Took place in 1981. A 36-year-old woman and her 5 kids were staying in a cabin outside of Quincy, California, in the Sierra Nevada mountains. I actually live somewhat near this area. It's truly a remote, forested, summertime cabin living type of place. On the night of the crime, the oldest daughter stayed the night at a friend's cabin. When she returned in the morning, she found her mother, 15-year-old brother, and his 17-year-old friend completely massacred, and her 12-year-old sister missing. The victims had all been bludgeoned with a hammer, tied up, stabbed, strangled. Blood was splattered everywhere. Furniture was smashed into pieces. Walls were pounded on. A steak knife had been used so forcefully that it was bent 25 degrees. Whoever committed the crime had gone on an absolute rampage, and was apparently there for about 10 hours. Curiously, the mom's 2 youngest sons and their friend who was staying the night were found unharmed in an upstairs bedroom. Only one of them claimed to have heard/seen anything, but he was so young that his statement was pretty useless to the police. Of note is that the unharmed friend was the prime suspect's son. Although that guy was eventually released by the cops due to a lack of evidence, the murders were never solved. 3 years later, part of the missing 12-year-old girl's skull was found about 50 miles away. She had been decapitated. Also worth mentioning is that the resort where all this happened was never the same after. People avoided it for years. It fell into disrepair and kind of became a ghost town. Squatters and bums would stay there. Some rich guy bought the resort at one point and tried to bring it back to life, but I think it's still largely avoided. The cabin where the murders occurred was finally demolished in 2004. In the 1980s, the Japanese food giant Asahi Glico was blackmailed by a mysterious group of apparent supervillains, calling itself the Monster with 21 Faces. It started with 2 armed men who broke into the home of the president of Glico, kidnapping him in front of his family. The men held the executive in a warehouse, calling the company and demanding 100 million yen and 100 kilos of gold bullion. The victim escaped the warehouse before he could find out whether or not his company was willing to pay to ransom his ass. None of the bad guys were caught, and that's too bad, because the monster wasn't through. A couple of weeks later, several cars in the company parking lot were set on fire. Then, the monster began to send letters. In the first letter, sent in a plastic container along with hydrochloric acid, because why the hell not? The monster claimed they had poisoned Glico's candies, which resulted in Glico losing $21 million worth of product that had to be pulled from shelves. The number may be a coincidence, but then again, who knows? The monster taunted the police by detailing in a letter its method of entry, what typewriter it used to write the message, and where it found the container with the acid in it. It didn't matter. Cops scoured the country for them and came up empty. Soon enough, just to prove they were toying with everyone, The monster suddenly sent a letter stating its forgiveness of Glico, and moved on. It gets weirder. The monster then turned its attention to another food company, Morinaga. Another letter was sent, similar to the Glico one, only this time, investigations turned up a total of 21 packages laced with the highly toxic sodium cyanide. Being the polite kind of shadowy creepy terrorist/terrorist group, the boxes were helpfully labeled with contains toxins, an example all criminals should follow. The police, getting desperate, thought they caught a glimpse of the mastermind behind the monster during a money drop. The group had demanded cash from another company. An officer described the criminal mastermind as a man having eyes like those of a fox, which would give him the nickname the Fox-Eyed Man. The same mysterious man was spotted again later, in a car during a sting operation. He escaped, but the cops found the car, and a radio transceiver that he had been using to listen into all of the police communications during the sting. So finally they've got a description of one of the bad guys. That resulted in nothing. The monster tormented several corporate giants for years, mocked the police, walked the streets as some of the most wanted men in the world, and not a single one of them ever got caught. A police superintendent got so frustrated by being outmaneuvered by the monster that he resigned in disgrace. Oh, wait, we misread that. He actually committed suicide by setting himself on fire, before disappearing into the night like goddamned Kaiser Soze. The monster released a letter mocking the dead man, and announced it would stop torturing food companies, apparently taking this entire thing as some sort of childish game. The monster's final words to the public: "We are bad guys. That means we've got more to do other than bullying companies. It's fun to lead a bad man's life." Monster with 21 faces. In a rural area of MS, a friend told me her father was driving on a back road and saw a large garbage bag on the side of the road. He was running late for work, so he didn't stop to pick it up. Later, police reported they found a body dropped off on that road. A friend of my family and Wall Street journalist, David Bird, is still missing with absolutely no evidence as to his whereabouts. The Wall Street Journal posted a reward of $10,000 as of last month. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.